The other day on Amazon, I came across this. It was what appeared to be a digital twin lens reflex camera priced at just $40. So needless to say, I added it to my cart faster than you can say instant regret. But when it finally arrived, it didn't take long before I realized that this has a dark secret. It's called the Chuzhao Camera, and if you want to take a look at it for yourself, then I'll leave a link in the pinned comment below. But you have to admit, at first glance, it does look absolutely brilliant. It's got all of that vintage TLR charm, including chrome accents and a faux leather finish. Well, kinda. I mean, it's entirely plastic, but still, it really does look the part. It even has the classic top-down viewfinder design and even this imitation film wind-on thing on the side, which actually does have a function, though maybe not the one you'd probably expect, but more on that in a minute. Anyway, the point is, someone has clearly gone to a lot of effort to style this to look and somewhat feel legit. As for the size, sure, it does appear to have been designed for Danny DeVito, but I don't think that's an entirely bad thing.
It could be a miracle, it could be bullshit.
Its small frame actually makes this pocketable, which is more than I can say for a real TLR camera. It's absurdly light too, mainly because it's made from recycled Happy Meal toys, but to its credit, it doesn't look cheap. I mean, if you squint a bit. So initially, I was totally on board. It's small, it's stylish, it turns on, all very promising signs. But after some close inspection, I noticed something that left a pit in my stomach and a strong sense of deja vu. Why does this feel somewhat familiar to me? Well, taking a closer look at the lens element on the front, I soon identified its dark and ugly secret. This, my friends, is a scamera. Hidden beneath the retro charm lurks a cheap sensor module, the very same ones found in those junk cameras that are absolutely plaguing Amazon, AliExpress, and TikTok Shop these days. Now, I've had my fair share of run-ins with those types of cameras in the past, and so admittedly, my hopes that this would actually be something usable were completely shattered. But I figured I'd come this far, so I might as well give it a try, right? And all I can say is that I'm actually glad I listened to my gut and gave this thing a second chance, because whilst this is absolutely a scamera, dare I say it, this might actually be an okay one. So if this camera is actually okay, for what it is at least, why would I still class this as a scamera? Surely that implies that this is a scam or a rip-off, right? Well, this term typically is used to describe low-cost digital cameras that choose to lean very heavily on design over core functionality. The idea is that the manufacturers will make cameras that look the part with vintage or premium aesthetics in order to try and fool anyone who doesn't know any better into thinking they're actually buying a proper camera, whilst in reality it's essentially just a kid's toy filled with cheap electronics and a bunch of lies. Usually the easiest way to spot a scamera is by looking at the lens. You see, instead of having a high quality optical zoom or prime like you'd find on any credible compact camera, these kind of cameras include a cheap all-in-one digital sensor and lens array that you tend to find inside bargain basement webcams or baby monitors, meaning that the image quality usually makes the Nokia 7650 look like a Hasselblad in comparison. Now, this camera does have one of those lenses, and despite it looking like a TLR or twin lens reflex camera, it isn't even remotely close to sharing the same kind of operation. In fact, this top element here is completely fake. It's just a chunk of plastic. It's only this lower one that actually captures images. Now, admittedly, I should probably have known better, but in my defense, A, I am incompetent, as you probably already know. B, that lens array is actually pretty well hidden behind all of that vintage plastic goodness. And C, yes, I might have got a little bit too excited by its retro good looks and didn't probably research it before buying it, but see point A for more details. But anyway, what's it actually like to shoot with, you're probably wondering? Well, look, I won't sugarcoat it. Using this camera is a bit like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube after 3 glasses of wine with only one hand in the dark whilst suffering a brain hemorrhage. Absolutely nothing is labeled on this camera. There aren't any instructions included in the box, and the interface is, well, there is no interface. There's a total of 4 buttons on the camera, well, 5 if you include this lever thing thing on the side, as this can also be depressed, but I can't actually work out whether that has a function or not. And there are zero hints anywhere on this camera as to what any of these buttons actually do. No joke, I actually had to go back to the original Amazon listing to study the product photos in order to figure out how to turn this stupid thing on, because frantically tapping all of the buttons on the front here didn't do anything. As it turns out, you need to hold down this button here for a few seconds and then eventually everything will spring to life. Obvious when you know, right?
Why didn't I think of that?
Now from here, you do have a few options. Tapping the same button that I just held down to power it up will toggle between a choice of photo filters, or rather photo filter, because you only have the options between color or black and white. Now in fairness, at least the one filter it does offer is actually usable, and I'd much prefer that over having a long list of borderline unusable ones that add absolutely no value, so I can't grumble too much. Anyway, this other chrome button at the bottom here that protrudes slightly further out from the body than the rest is the shutter button, and then there are these two buttons at the top here. Now tapping the one on the left brings up a camera icon on the screen, and it either says off or auto, and that's about it. But I can't honestly find any info online that tells me what that setting actually does. Even heading back to the Amazon listing for clues didn't help, because apparently that button is the delete button, though as you'll see in a second it is, but it also isn't. Now as far as I can tell, all it does is activates or deactivates the AF point in the center of the screen, and whether this is on or off, it still manages to autofocus, so it all seems a little bit pointless to me. Anyway, then we have this button, and this enters playback mode so that you can look through all of your glorious photos and videos. Just turn this little crank on the side and you can scroll through them. All very simple. Now to delete an image, you have to press the delete button. Thank you, Amazon listing. And then you can use the crank to select yes and then press the delete button to delete the image, right? No. In fact, I don't know what you meant to do. I pressed all of the available buttons and none of them allow you to confirm deletion. I guess it's a bit like edging, but for file organization or something. Look, to be honest, this really wasn't a big deal anyway, because the photos it captures are less than a megabyte each, and this thing comes included with a 16 gigabyte micro SD card, meaning that you can technically capture over 16,000 images before the card would even remotely fill. But I'd wager that no one will ever in the history of humanity capture that many images with this camera. Plus, if you leave the camera switched on, you can connect it to your computer using the included USB-C cable, and then you can sort through, backup and delete photos that way, which is just way easier. Now, if you have been paying attention, a moment ago I mentioned that you could review back your videos, and yes, you can actually record 1080p HD video clips too, though even doing this is somewhat weird and cryptic. So you have two ways in order to record video, and both of them I stumbled upon by complete accident whilst just fiddling around with it. Firstly, if you start to crank this handle at the side, it'll actually start to record video. Now, once you stop cranking, a 6-second timer will appear on screen, and if you don't turn the handle before the timer runs out, it will stop recording your video. Now, admittedly, continuously turning this handle to record video is absolutely adorable, but also incredibly stupid, because your footage just looks like a total shaky mess. But to get around this, you can just turn the handle a few times until you see the red dot appear on the screen, and if you stop turning the crank quickly enough, it'll actually record continuously until you turn the handle again, which will then start the 6-second countdown. But honestly, all of that is a complete waste of time, because firstly, the video captured this way won't have any audio for some unknown reason, and second, there is just a much easier way of doing it. Instead, all you need to do is hold down the shutter button for around 2 to 3 seconds, and it will start continuously recording video until you press the shutter button again. Why they even bothered with this whole crank idea is completely beyond me, because most of the time I'll just knock this whilst taking photos by accident, which will then set off recording, leaving my memory card full of short video clips I didn't want and absolutely no means of being able to delete them either. Great. So what's the video quality actually like? Well, exactly as you would expect. Mushy, low res, shaky as rolling shutter galore, and highlights so burnt out that you'd be forgiven for thinking I was actually shooting on the surface of the sun. So at this point, you may be wondering, why did I even suggest at the start of this video that this thing was okay? Well, bear with me, because it does genuinely have some redeeming qualities, I promise. Now, most scammers that I've ever dealt with try to add perceived value by just cramming in things like cheesy digital overlays, way too many filter options, and other completely nonsensical things that just don't belong on a camera. it has Pac-Man on it. This, by comparison, is actually quite restrained. There's no settings menu, no fake ISO settings, no tacky filters. Hell, there's not even really a heads-up display. You just switch it on and start shooting. It's minimal, clean, and I kind of think that's what makes it charming in a way. Shooting with the top-down display is actually a lot of fun, and it somewhat makes it well suited to candid street and travel photography. The screen itself is actually very nice too. It's punchy, sharp, and plenty bright enough even when shooting in bright sunlight, aided of course by this pop-up shade. As for the photos, well, the good news is that they're square, so perfect for Instagram circa 2013. It also really does seem to produce true 12 megapixel photos as promised on the side of the box, which is more than I can say for some other scammers which tend to promise huge 40 or 50 megapixel photos, which in actual fact are just low-res images that have been badly scaled up in the camera itself. The bad news, however, is that, well, this is still a scamera, so the photos are JPEG only, highly compressed, and have the dynamic range of a shoe. The resulting photos that I captured are high contrast with highlights that often are blown out way too easily and colours that feel like they were mixed using leftover printer ink. But weirdly, it still has a bit of stole. The images certainly aren't great, but they're still pretty fun and plenty sharp enough for posting on social media. And honestly, in the right setting, you could totally make this work as a lo-fi travel, street, or holiday camera, kinda. So does this mean that the Chuzhao camera is actually worth buying? Well, let me be abundantly clear. This is nothing more than a cheap novelty and has very few real creative benefits. But as a fun, aesthetic little toy that looks amazing on a shelf or even in your hand, for $40, it might actually be worth a go. I've got to admit, it's certainly something that's been so much fun that it's made me want to get out and shoot more. And with all the photos that you'll be taking with it, you'll probably need a fancy new website to host all of those new shots. Luckily, that's where today's sponsor, One.com, could come in handy. You see, unlike most other web creation platforms, One.com offers an AI-powered website creation tool that allows you to get your site up and running in just a matter of minutes. Start off by answering a few super simple questions and the AI will generate a customized website design for you. No technical coding skills needed. From there, you can easily tweak the design to your liking using the drag and drop website builder, and alongside the AI website creator, One.com includes domain registration, hosting, and professional emails all in one place. My favorite part is that there are no hidden fees, just straightforward, transparent pricing, plus 24/7 customer support is always available to help should you need it. Be sure to get yourself a 14-day free trial using the link in the pinned comment below, and also receive 50% off your first website using the code TomCalton.